All right, once again, thank you, everybody. So what we're going to do is just going to be a working session, and we're just going to see some of those prompts out there, some of those best practices out there. So first, I talked about security incidents, policy changes. If there are new policies out there, we can use ChatGPT to baseline and give us some of the recommendations in terms of those changes in regulation. We talk about security incidents. So if I have a dump of security incident, I could ask it to give me some of the best practice or containment strategy for those recommendations. Employee training compliance review, I can actually look at all our compliance data and ask ChatGPT to give me a trend on some of the best practices in terms of how to make sure people are more in compliance based on the data I have. I can also look at vendor risk assessment report. I can look at mapping cyber policy to best framework out there. So I can actually take a cybersecurity policy and ask ChatGPT or any of those model to benchmark it to certain industry framework. And that can be ISO 27001, that could be NIST CSF 2.0, whatever it is, you could actually use it for any mapping you choose to do. So that's really cool. Another thing out there is that we can actually map vulnerabilities and say, okay, based on these known vulnerabilities out there, map it to give me a recommendation on how to fix those vulnerabilities. You know, incident report, incident response report. You can actually also, analyze an incident response report. So let's quickly just go through each one of these, then we can play with it in real time. So you can see here, this is a sample security incident report here. You can see this is just talking about, okay, this is the incident number, this is the type of threat, this is the affected asset. Remember to show you the actual digital asset affected. Then look at the time of occurrence. So I can put a prompt to analyze, and this is a real prompt. I can say, analyze this data, you know, and help identify the current patterns such as specific types of threats, you know, targeting certain asset or occurring at particular time. So you can prompt it to kind of analyze the data for you and look at the times and look at the threat pattern. In real time, of course, it will not just be 10 they will give you, right? They might give you, the report might be like 1,000 lines, right? If I have 1,000 lines, that's a lot to analyze. So it means it makes sense to just, you know, use a similar prompt to analyze it in real time. Now look at this other one, policy change, for example. This is just an example I gave to say, okay, this is an IT policy here. In the policy, I'm telling ChatGPT to say, look at what I asked it to do. Review the existing policy and identify any deficiency concerning compliance with GDPR. So what it did here is this. It reviewed the policy and it went to data protection section, right? Which is up here, this section here. And it analyzed it and it told me the updated GDPR regulation mandate organization to implement enhanced encryption standard for protecting personal data. It actually gave me a feedback on what we should add. So that means if you have a policy and you want to check if it complies with certain regulation, you can prompt your policy to check if there was a gap as per an existing regulation out there. It's amazing. And it will show you. Yeah, it will actually show you, if there's a gap in your policy immediately. Okay. So that's another thing you can use it for. Now look at another one. This is a report that comes out of so many tools. I mean, there are many tools out there that you can pull this report from. We use tools to scan in cybersecurity for different incidents, right? So you might be using tools like Splunk, QRadar, internal tools, pulling logs, whatever it is, Nexus, whatever it is that is pulling your vulnerabilities or any incident that you've seen in your system, you can actually run a prompt to say, review each of the table and create a column for recommendation of the, identified issue. How do we contain it? If you have an issue identified, like I said many times, what you would have done historically would have been you would have gone to start researching from the vendor's website. From the vendor's website, you will start doing extra research on Google on the best practices. But now, all I need to do is find the dump of all the issues and incidents, and I'll just run a query. I don't even need to copy and paste it. I'll just upload the file into ChatGPT and it would analyze it for me. Crazy. I'll show you guys how to do that, okay? Very simple. It's one of the most underutilized tools in ChatGPT. We think it's mostly just to copy and paste stuff and write prompt data, but now you can analyze data. That is the most powerful, crazy tool I've seen. You can analyze real data. Okay, you'll see it today. All right, look at another one. This is just saying the employee. So we have here the employee trading compliance. You can see it shows the employee ID, completion rate, quiz score, the time spent per module. I kept it small for the purpose of our exercise. In real life, this report might be 1,000 lines because most big organizations would have many staff. So if I have all of this large information of all this stuff, I could just ask ChatGPT to analyze and give me, information about each of these specific reports and tell me a pattern, tell me a trend. It will do it for us. Amazing, amazing. All right, let me show you another one. Then once I go through, I'm almost done with this, then we now get into, you'll see the way I will do it. Really cool. Another thing you'll see is that, vendor risk assessment report. This is just an example here. So you can see this report. I can say, based on this vendor assessment report, can you give me, tell me the overall risk posture and recommendation to mitigate the risk. So I can ask some questions based on this report. Look at the final one, I believe. Mapping cyber policy to industry framework. So this is really getting into, framework, you know. So you can see here, give me 1 second, please. All right, sorry about that. Okay, so anyway, this is just showing how we can map different things. We can map vulnerabilities here. You can see here, this is a very nice one because what's happening here is that you can see a vulnerability and say, okay, based on all this, I think this is a very big one actually. I've seen this a lot. Some organization would have all of these vulnerabilities and the challenge is, okay, what do I do about it? Man, I don't know if you've seen those reports before. And honestly, I've seen those and at times it will just make you have like a brain freeze because what will happen is that you just realize, okay, you have all these junk files, um, but you just don't have, okay, what do I do about it? But our world has changed. ChatGPT said, okay, don't worry, we got you covered. There's something you can do about it. So that's pretty awesome, actually. So, but anyway, so you get the gist about that. So the other thing is you can look at incident response report and just ask it to help you to analyze stuff. All right. So now your question is, okay, you've said all this fancy big talk. How does it apply to us? So you see how it applies to us now. What I'm going to do is you guys will see in real time the same document we all have. We're going to pull this document. Let me share with